What is up, guys? We're covering one of my favorite attacks. This is cross-site request forgery, and this is the one I've had a lot of success with finding in out there in the real world because this one is actually pretty prevalent, and it can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around in the beginning, but once you have a feel for what's going on, it's actually very simple and very simple to test for as well. So basically, what is cross-site request forgery? Well, the way they define it is it's a vulnerability, a web vulnerability that allows an attacker to induce users to perform actions they do not intend to perform. It allows an attacker to partly circumvent the same origin policy, which is designed to prevent different websites from interfering with each other. So basically what's going on here is a attacker will create some kind of malicious HTML file with some JavaScript in it. And just as Portswigger talks about, they're trying to induce a user to visit that page, but while they're logged into some other site. So if you imagine that this girl here is an admin of some school website, let's say. They look like kids, right? They look like they're in college or something maybe, right? Let's say she is like the president of the book club, and there is a book club website, and she's the admin, right? She's the president, and she's the admin of that site. And this guy here, this nerdy looking guy, this is like, I love the artwork. I really love the artwork they come up with on this site. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, this guy over here, right? Let's say that he wants to infiltrate the book club, and he wants to make his account an admin account so that he can take over the site, right? So one thing he can do is, if they are not protecting their website against cross-site request forgery, he can basically create a malicious HTML file with some JavaScript on it, and he can host that anywhere on the internet, some server that he controls perhaps, right? And then he can use whatever means, social engineering perhaps. Maybe he's going to trick this seemingly innocent girl here. Or maybe the website also has cross-site scripting vulnerability, right? He can, if it's a stored cross-site scripting vulnerability, he could force her browser to go to his malicious web page anytime they visit the page that is infected by cross-site scripting, stored cross-site scripting, right? So there's a number of ways that he can do this, but one way or another, let's say that he gets her to visit his malicious page while she's logged in to her book club app. So he might know what a post request looks like for a reset password, for a password reset, right? Because he could easily find that out, right? He could go on the website and create a basic user account and see what parameters are involved in the post request to reset his email. So he could use that when he's creating his malicious page that he's hosting, right? So what that page could essentially say is, whenever you load this in your browser, so whenever you visit my page, automatically send a password reset on book club using your session tokens. So he could very easily do this. And when I demo this, you'll see just how easy it is, which I'll be demoing that in another video here. I'm just going to cover the attack for now, right? So let's say that he creates that. She visits his site while she's logged in. Well, now suddenly he's admin, just like that. And it bypasses the same origin policy and all of that stuff. So as you can imagine, the impact, it really varies depending on what you're actually able to exploit. So it really depends what kind of functionality is on the site. Obviously, if there's a change password, you can take over the account. So I guess in that example, he wouldn't immediately be admin. He would reset her password, right? He would reset her password to something that he knows, right? So then he can log into her account, and maybe he can grant his account admin access. And by the time she gets access back and resets her password, he already has an admin account in the system. Maybe he booted her out of the administrators group on his admin account before she got it back, and he took over the site. He compromised it. So as you can imagine, this has a potential to be very high impact, right? But yeah, all this was what I was explaining basically. You'll have a post request. Now, here's a very simplified example in this case. You just have something like this, email equals, and that's all. But sometimes there'll be a lot of stuff, and that's where Burp Suite can really come in handy. Burp Pro in particular, as you can generate one automatically. But if you have to create it manually, it really depends how many parameters are in the body, as far as how cumbersome it is to create the exploit HTML file for it. But yeah, this is what you're looking at on your attacker server. It's going to be something like that, like a document.form submit. And you're submitting hidden form fields for the email in this case, right? And it's important to note, if there were any other post data, if there was any other post fields in the body here other than email, you would also need to include those as hidden form fields as well for every single expected parameter in the body. So in this case, it's very simple because all it is email. But yeah, that's something that Burp Pro's Generate CSRF will do for you. But as I will be using the Community Edition, when I go to demo this, I'm going to have to do it in a more manual way, which is fine. That's cool. You guys will get to see that, how I do it the manual way. So although CSRF is normally described in relation to cookie-based session handling, right, because we're exploiting them, this only works if she's actively logged into the app when she visits his site. If she does not have an active session when she visits his site, basically nothing will happen, right? Because from the perspective of her website, right, the book club website in this example, it cannot tell the difference between her actually making that password reset request or her making it through his server. Like, to this server, they both look the same. It cannot tell. So, yeah, the CSRF POC generator, that's only in Pro, though, to generate this. Now, they have a lab here, and I wonder if they have one with defenses. Okay, cool. So they have some tougher ones where token validation depends on the token being present. Yep. So you'll see that just because, okay, first let me back up. What is how do you prevent this, right? Well, you prevent it by using some kind of unique token, right? So usually they'll call it like a CSRF token in the header or an XSRF token, or however pretty much whatever the developer wants to call it. But basically they need some kind of long, unguessable, unique value that is different with each session so that no one can guess it and no one can forge requests, right? So something like this. It needs to have good entropy and all that stuff, of course. But this is something that the developer needs to make sure they... well, I said header, right? You pass it in the body, right? You could be in the body for sure. But especially on all the post requests where you're modifying data on the site like that, you're changing something, the developer should always have some token associated with that request, like required in that request. So especially if you notice when you're doing your pen testing, someone, you found a post request that's changing some data on the site, as post requests often do, and you don't see any token on that request, then immediately I'd be thinking CSRF. But as they mentioned down here, and we'll see as we get into these labs, don't assume that just because you see a CSRF token there that it's not vulnerable. Because, yeah, some of these developers can get a bit lazy, and it has even been seen in the wild where all they were looking for is the presence of a CSRF token. So you could basically have the value whatever you wanted, or maybe as long as it's the same length or whatever, right? So you might be able to get away with just forging your own. So that's another part of the security, right? The token should be impossible to forge, more or less, right? And it shouldn't be tied to the user session, right? Like, this should not be something that's guessable, right? Because if it's tied to the user session, then if an attacker knows the username of, like, an admin account called admin or some username that he knows, he or she knows, then there's a good chance that the attacker can actually guess the token, which obviously that's bad, right? And likewise, you don't want it to be tied to any other cookie, anything known. You don't want it to be associated with anything known. It should be completely random, have good entropy, all of that. So, and no duplicates of anything, right? So, yep, you pretty much get the gist of it here. There's a lot of labs to go through with this, which is pretty exciting. Let's see this last note here. Although you may be able to identify this behavior using burp, you often find this approach no longer works when you go to test your proof of concept in a browser. In an attempt to reduce the risk of sensitive data being leaked this way, many browsers now strip query string. Okay, yeah, this is referring to this particular validation of refer can be circumvented. We're going to be diving into all this stuff most certainly. So, yeah, don't worry about that. We'll be coming right back to this one. I might actually do a few of these labs and then bounce over to some of the other ones just to get a wide coverage. Let me know in the comments section below what you guys rather me do, because there's a lot of really interesting topics in here. Like, look at this site. It's really awesome. There's a lot of things that I'm pretty excited to cover here, and I want to challenge myself, especially with these DOM-based things here. I think it would be really beneficial for me, even as a pen tester. There's so much value here. And this is something I didn't know. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and they were saying that, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the book back in the day, the Web Application Hacker's Handbook. That was written by the people at Portswigger, basically. And instead of writing a new edition of the book, they created this. They created the Web Academy. I did not know that that was like the same people that created Web Application Hacker's Handbook, and this was basically the next version of it. But yeah, pretty cool little tidbit of information there. But yeah, let me know in the comments section, would you rather me go all the way through all of the CSRF labs, or would you prefer me to go through some of them and then start exploring some of these other vulnerabilities here? Because we got a lot to cover. So I want to do what interests you guys for sure. So let me know. Yeah, but thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you haven't already. And I will see you over in the videos on screen now if you're eager to get into some of the hands-on. I know this one wasn't super hands-on, but we have that content for you as always right there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you right over there.